this morning. It began with learning that today is Asher's birthday. He's 2 years old, but don't lean in to tell him. He will poke you in the eye. I leaned in to speak to him and thought I lost the contact. I wasn't really sure what just happened. Judy thought I was playing with him. I was like, no, he really poked me in the eye. But the moral of that story is take me to get hold of your kid. He's out of control. I'm sitting there in 2 years. I was like, wow, is he already 2? That's amazing, you know. And then I look up and say, yeah, I've felt the last 2 years. So think about that for me. But let's pray. You would. Father God, we thank you. God, we thank you for all that we have in you. And God, would we spend time discussing this morning? We pray that it would encourage our hearts, our minds, everything we are. God. That it would also instruct us. That it would lead us, that it would guide us. God, we're mindful of that. And so, God, we pray that as you speak, we would listen. We would act upon what we heard. It's in your Son's name that we pray. We are going to be spending some time in John chapter 14, as was just read to us. But I was thinking about just even kind of in the moment. So in the Old Testament, we have this version of a prayer, of a statement, or whatever. That's kind of the Old Testament version of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Well, in the Old Testament, there is what is known as the Shema, S-H-E-M-A. All right, and that is the statement of, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And what's interesting is how it reads. Is there's certain words in the Hebrew language that aren't there, and so interpreters add them in to help them make sense. Right? We understand that a lot with a lot of other languages to try to get them to rearrange to that we can follow what it is. And actually what it says is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord God, the Lord one." And so when we think about this, that word "hear" is Shema in Hebrew. And so when he says "hear," it's more than just listening to audible noise, right? It's actually listening, applying, and going those words. So as we think about what we're going to discuss today, we're mindful of when he says, especially in the New Testament, for those who have ears, let them hear. He's saying, when you have the ability to Shema, right? When you have the ability to listen and act accordingly. And so keep that in mind. That wasn't planned. That's free. All right. So now my clock begins. All right. As we think about this, there are statements. We've been going through this series, Big Questions. There are statements made in life that when we hear them, they either make sense or they bring back some memories in our life. They can bring this flood of emotions, these thoughts that come to our life. And a lot of times we maybe just hear the statements, hear the quotes. They make sense, but they make even more sense when we see who it's applied to. All right, so let's do a little experiment. All right, as we think about this, here's our first statement. I think I'm afraid to be happy because whenever I get too happy, something bad always happens. Anybody ever been that way? That as things start to turn and start to improve in life, I'm a little afraid of this because something bad always happens with it. Well, again, we said, remember, as we tell you who said it, it's going to make more sense. Charlie Brown. Right? We can look at Charlie Brown's life and go, yes, that makes perfect sense. Right? It makes complete sense. What about this one? Why do I have the feeling this is not going to be much fun? You know, I have talked ad nauseum to my fandom of the sports team that I am fans of, and there are times I sit down and I think, this is not going to be much fun. And then sometimes you're surprised. We think about this one, Eeyore. Right? We can look at that life and go, yes, I can see what he says. Now, this one, you may know what this one is. Remember who you are. Lion King, right? One of the greatest movies of all time. Okay, I'll go ahead and call it what it is. I'm 40 years old. I think Lion King is one of the best movies of all time. Just accept that. Discuss that with your friends later on, however you feel about that. But when we think about this, we think kind of what do they mean to us? Maybe it means, maybe a sense of having a bad day and so we need to laugh, right? Maybe we think of growing up, they had this thing called a newspaper, I don't know if y'all are aware of it, and that you would read comic strips in them, right? And we think of Charlie Brown, one of my favorite comic strips of all time. I would read that and then even every year when it comes around to certain holidays, you would have the specials, right? You think about them. And we're mindful of those things, and so it brings about these emotions. Well, there was 4 that I wanted to show you today. I've already showed you 3 of them, so here's the last one. I'm going to have to give you the suspense of who said it. The way, the truth. What does this mean to us when we hear this? When we hear these words, when these thoughts come into us, and we're led to a moment where we respond. There is a doctrine or teaching, if you will, called utilitarianism. All right? For some, that's a big word, okay? And in essence, what it means is that a doctrine or teaching that says that an action is only right if it is for the benefit of the majority. All right? And so much as it is beneficial to everyone, that makes this doctrine, this teaching, this action right. So as long as it benefits me. Because if it doesn't, there's something flawed with it. Now when we think about this, when we think about even that, that I'm too afraid to be happy because I'm not really sure what it's going to bring about in my life. Think about this when we understand this teaching of it's only right as long as it benefits the majority. And by the way, I'm the majority, right? That I'm speaking to myself. That I want to make a statement to you that will really kind of develop and make sense as we go throughout this lesson. God does not exist so that we can be happy. God does not exist for my happiness, for your happiness. Now, listen. Based off God's existence, you will experience moments of happiness, right? But He didn't come to be, He didn't create you to be happy. You know why God created you? You know why God exists and why you exist? So that you may glorify Him. Check out Colossians sometimes and see what Paul is leading the church in Colossae to understand. That the reason, especially in chapter 2, the reason for God's existence is so that we will glorify Him. Is so that we will exalt Him. We just sing about that, right? I exalt Thee. That's why we exist. That's why we are who we are. And so when we think about this teaching, this doctrine, that it's only right as long as it benefits the majority, we find a flaw in that because at the moment when life doesn't turn out the way that we think it should, when life sends us down this path and we're not really sure why it did, there must be something flawed in the teaching because it does not benefit the majority. All right? So think about that as we look at this and again we mentioned this last week. Jesus gives one of these ego eimi statements, that from the Greek the words I am. When he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. There's another thing that he says, a point that he brings out here. He does not say, I am a way. I am a truth. I am a life that you can offer. He says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. He says, this is not this kind of doctrine that the world will teach. That it's only beneficial if it is for the majority. And it brings happiness to the majority. What he is telling us is, I am. And what that means to our life. There was two gentlemen were having this argument, so they go before a judge. They let the judge settle the case, is their plan, is what they're trying to do. And so you got one that states his case before the judge, and when it gets to the end, the judge goes, that's right. Well, now you got an individual going, now hold on, judge. I haven't got a chance to express my side of this. I haven't got a chance to tell you how I feel about this. And he says, all right, go ahead, state your case. When it gets done, and the judge says, that's right. So the court reporter says, okay, judge, they can't both be right. The judge says, that's right. You know, sometimes we go to a source for an answer, and you're like, that's not an answer at all. or how is that beneficial? How is that going to help answer my question? If all we go to people and all they tell us all the time is, that's right. Or, good job. And they've not really listened. They've not really offered a solution. What if we embarked upon? St. Augustine said, men go abroad to admire the heights of mountains, the mighty waves of the sea, the broad tides of the rivers, the compass of the ocean, and the circuits of the stars, yet pass over the mystery of themselves without thought. And when we think about us, about who we are, about sons and daughters of the King, about those that at the very moment of creation, that what makes us unique is that God breathed into us His life, His Spirit. And that within us there is something greater. Well, that God would say, greater is He who is in me than he who is in me. And we bypass that sometimes without a thought. So let's go to John chapter 14. In John chapter 14, we've got this moment of our question that we're looking at for today. He begins this thought really by we read 5 through 7, but this is a discussion that begins especially at the beginning of the chapter. So let's start there, verse 1. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that where I am going to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am. You know the place to where I am going. Now, yesterday, I received a text message from somebody that needed to come pick something up that was loaned to us. And I was asked, okay, what's your address? Well, I gave our address, but then also said, okay, it's on the corner of this street and that street. And I gave all the descriptive details so that if you're one of those that doesn't like risk listening to MapQuest, send you through all the back roads. All these kind of things, you get all the markers to understand where you need to go, right? Now, Jesus has done this for you. But it depends how you listen, right? It depends the mindset in which you're listening, the mode in which you're listening, all these things. He has spent this entire time giving them all the markers to describe the way that they can go. Right? So how does Thomas respond? Lord, we don't know where you're going. So how can we know the way? You just told us we know the way to the place where you are going. You're going somewhere, and you said we know the way. But Thomas says what again? We don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? We don't understand this. We don't understand, we can go back and see that it says that Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. Set his mind on the sacrifice that he was going to embark upon. But again, as he's going and as he's speaking, as he's describing all these things that he's doing, as he is giving all these details, all these markers to the way in which he is going, again, it's how you're listening and what you're listening for that helps you to know when he makes a statement like this. Right? So let's look at Jesus' reply. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. So we might look at this statement and say, okay, put yourself in the position of the disciples here. Jesus, could you just please answer the question? I didn't need this other teaching or this further explanation about who you are. I asked a question, I expected an answer, and Jesus telling them, I am answering you. Okay? I am answering your question. He says, I am not just a way, I am not just a truth, I am not just a life. Because again, if you catch this, they just ask about a direction. Jesus explains who he is in entirety. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. And above that he says, no one comes to the Father except through me. Okay, so what you're saying is you're going to the Father? What you're saying is now for us to know the way we've got to know you. And Jesus says, maybe even as they're thinking about that, he goes ahead and answers that question. He says, if you knew me, if you know me, you know the Father. And from now on, because the way in which you are listening, that you are actively listening, because now I've brought this to your attention. Now I want you to know. I want you to listen to everything I say from here on out as if you're listening to God. As if you're listening to the Father. Right? And it changes the way we respond. It changes the way we hear. Jesus is changing their mindset, the mood they have, and how they listen. What to listen for. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. You know me. Now understand that means you know the Father. You know him and who he is. So when we think about this, we think about the implications that this statement has for our life. Sometimes we may look back, and again, I want to remind you of that utilitarianism teaching that says that this action, this teaching, is only right as long as it benefits the majority. Well, we may look and say, okay, all right, we reflect back on a statement that was made to us. Jesus, let's fast forward in the life of the disciples. I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Maybe when you find yourself in moments after such a statement is made that you're told to listen to, you're told to apply to your life, and you see that it sends you down a path of suffering, you see it sends you down a path of frustration, and you say, how can this teaching be right? Because of what I'm going through. want you to listen. All right? You may have other things going on in your mind that you're thinking about. That you're thinking about your afternoon, where you're going to eat, how you're going to plan out your nap. Okay? But I want you to listen. Okay? Are you ready? God doesn't exist so that you will never have struggles in this life. God didn't create you so that you would never have moments of sadness. God exists so that when we go through those seasons of life, we can call upon Him, and we can glorify His name, and we can praise Him, and we can exalt Him. God exists so we listen. And He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You see, sometimes we come to the end of our workday and we're watching the clock, thinking 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and I'm out of here, and I get to go home. Right? I get to relax, read a good book, watch this show that everybody's talking about, and I've tried not to listen, all these kind of things. I've got it recorded, I'm ready. I know what we're going to, maybe you've got plans that evening to go eat, all this, you've got this excitement. You know what? There may be somebody here that's not as excited as you are. Maybe some things have happened in their life. But the excitement is not there. Maybe they dread going. Maybe it's because of just whatever. Life going different directions. Maybe it's because of health struggles. Going home reminds you that God exists so that in those moments you can be there to make a difference in their life. God exists. God created you to step into those moments and be a voice that leads them to know the way, the truth, and the life. God exists so that you will be an instrument of righteousness, of peace, of hope, and that when they dread a moment, when they dread going to a situation that brings back such a flood of memories, we talked earlier about how it may bring happiness, it may bring a smile, laughter, just thinking about certain things. Sometimes certain places bring about something negative in our life, and we don't want to go there. We have an opportunity as the church, as God's people, as His sons, as His daughters, to step into those moments and lead people to understand and lead people to know that yes, in this life, Jesus even said you're going to have troubles, you're going to have struggles, but take hope because I am. And we have an opportunity to be that voice to say, yes, I understand that people may say that it's only right as long as it benefits you, but I want you to know that the greatest benefit for your life is to understand and to know that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And the only way to God is through the Son. The only way to this joy is through the Son. The only way to this hope is through the Son. The only way to receive what we truly desire in the depths of our heart and to realize all that God has for us is through the Son. And so He says, listen, pay attention. Now we may think back and say, well, what difference can I make? We may say, I'm one of those that dreads going home. How can I make a difference? I'm reminded of this statement right here I read the other day. It says, God saves you for heaven so He can use you in history. That God offers His salvation for you. That someday that hope of heaven is there in store for you. But He didn't do it so that you can just think about and just, live in anticipation of that moment. God saved you for heaven so that you can make a difference in someone's life. so that you can lead them to know Jesus in everything and in every way. God saved you for His purpose, for His will. Sorry, this may be difficult to hear. He didn't save you for your will. He didn't save you, I'm not talking about Will Powers, all right? He didn't save you for what you desire and what you want to bring about. Or Will Powers. God saved you so that you can make a difference in someone's life. That's why He saved you. Two men were walking down a beach and saw in the distance somebody, and it looked like they were just picking up throwing something to the ocean, and they're trying to figure out what it is, and they get closer and they realize, that it was kind of a local, and they come up to him, and then they notice that he's picking up all these starfish that the tide has brought in, and they're just littered across the beach. And they come up to him and they say, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, they've got to be further out in the water so they can get out there and they can survive. Being in the deep waters, that can save them." And they said, What difference can you make? Look at all this. You're the only one doing this. And he picks another one up and he throws it and says, "I made a difference in that one." We have the opportunity, no matter who we are, no matter what's going on in our lives, to make a difference. And it's understanding that it's in the water that gives us life. And we lead someone to life. We lead someone to hope. Now for us, we speak of the waters of baptism. We speak of that death, burial, and resurrection that we experience when we surrender that old life and we rise anew. And we're restored to that relationship, we're redeemed to that relationship, and we're reminded of that presence that's within us. That maybe at one time we didn't give much thought. And we reflect on what's inside. As we think about these questions, as we think about what these questions mean for us in our life, we've looked at a few of these throughout this month, and the implications that they have on our life. When we think of what we desire most, or what I believe God hopes that we desire most, is that relationship with Him. And we say, "Well, I don't know exactly what I need to do. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know how to respond." He says, "I am the way, the truth." If you want to get to the Father, you've got to go through me. Sometimes when people make that statement, it's a threat. You want to get to them, you better go through me first, right? For Jesus, this is a promise. I promise you, if you go through me, you will see God. If you want to seek Him for who He is, if you want to experience Him, He says, get to know me. Get to know the Son. He says, because if you're really, you know my Father. And sometimes as we live that out, you see, we teach what we know. And that's a good thing, right? We teach those things. We go to school to learn these things. We spend time studying these things. And so we teach what we know. But I want to tell you, we impart who we are. And if our life and our teaching doesn't match up, we're going to be hard to follow. We're going to be hard to follow, as Paul says, we imitate Christ. So what is it that you are implying? What truly are you teaching to the world around you? Not just with your words, but with your actions. Is it that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life? Or is it that, well, that sounds good, it doesn't benefit me, if it's not helpful to me, then there's a flaw in it. What's the teaching of Jesus? We are called to be disciples of Christ, not disciples of us. God exists so that we may glorify Him. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you. God, we know that every day we're presented with opportunities to be examples of you, to teach others about you. God, to model the Christian life, to imitate you, and that when they see the things that we do and the way that we speak, and God, that you would be brought to their minds, that you would be brought to their lives. God, we want to do your will. We want to fulfill your purpose. Because we know, God, that's what truly benefits in this life and in the life to come. So, God, we praise you. God, we thank you for your patience. God, we thank you for your guidance. May we listen, God. May we act accordingly. So, in your Son's name we pray. So, how do we respond? Oh, you have to answer that. That's the question. How do we respond? To surrender your life to Him? Be baptized for the forgiveness of your sins, to have the hope of eternal life? Maybe to ask for strength with the prayers. Because life has its difficult moments. And we don't know how to make it. Let God be your refuge. Let God be your strength. We can help you either way. Let's come.